Honestly, in all the years I've been working as a photographer, this was probably the worst I've ever been treated. I have very few stories of being treated truly poorly, and I think this rises to the top. Want to hear about it? Just last week, I received a call in the morning asking if I was free to photograph an event that evening, not a wedding. I got some basic information from the gentleman who called and quoted him a price. He said, "Okay, we have a deal?" And I said yes, and then asked him to text me his contact information and the address, which he did right away. I immediately followed up with a text of my own to confirm I received the information and also sent an email so there would be a duplicate trail of communication. I spent the day working and then did the usual pre-event prep to make sure my gear was cleaned and charged and formatted. I canceled some plans and then drove an hour to the venue. The gentleman I spoke with earlier wasn't there yet, but I spoke with some other people who gave me a rundown of the event, and I conferred with the audiovisual people so I wouldn't be in their way. I set up my off-camera lighting and started shooting details. Then the gentleman with whom I spoke earlier ran up to me and said, Stop, what are you doing?" I thought this was a strange way to say hello to the person you hired, so I introduced myself. Instead of the response you usually get when you introduce yourself to someone, he instead tells me flat out my price was too high, so he hired someone else. I said, "I'm the someone else. You hired me. We had a deal." I reminded him that he agreed over the phone and then sent me the address of where to go. He then told me he never told me yes. I said after agreeing to my quote, he did in fact ask me if we had a deal, so that's in no way telling me no. I told him he had every opportunity throughout the day to say, "Let me think about it," or "That's over my budget." So instead he said nothing, and I did all that prep and went all that way for nothing. Then he waves his hands in the air saying, "No, no, no," and starts walking away from me. Now, I do my best to stay professional, but I have to say, having canceled my plans, spent the time getting ready, and then driving an hour, only to have him walk away from me when I questioned why he told me to go home, I was kind of shocked. I still had his attention, so I said this wasn't so much a miscommunication as it was no communication. Then he tells me if I can do it for what the other guy is charging, I can stay. Out of curiosity, I asked what he was charging, and it was a third of what I quoted. I said no, and he said, "Well, that's that," and walked off. So after the guy who hired me, but not really, walks away, the other photographer introduced himself and said, "I'm so sorry, I had no idea about any of this." I assured him this had nothing to do with him, and I harbor no ill will toward him. I can only imagine what he must have thought when the guy offered me the gig if I agreed to the same price with him standing right there. Would he have told him to go home? Was he thinking we'd haggle for lower and lower fees until one of us dropped out like some weird reverse auction? As it turns out, that was in fact that, so I packed up my stuff and went home. If the guy who called me had just told me from the get-go that he only pays X amount for these things, then we could have avoided all of this. If he told me on the phone that he wanted to think about it, that would have been fine. But when you agree to a quote, ask me if we have a deal based on that quote, and then not communicate anything further for the entire day, that's indicative of the disrespect and arrogance I later experienced in person. I'm not one to burn bridges, but why would I ever want to work with someone who treats me like that? With people like this, I can only assume I'm not alone in how he treats others. When you base a last-minute deal like this, or any deal for that matter, on your word, you're basing it on trust and respect. If someone goes back on that word, waits until I arrive to tell me they want to pay me a third of what we agreed to, and then sends me home when I say no, I can't say I'm too broken up about the idea of not working with that person again. I don't mind being told no, it comes with the territory. But to make me think I'm getting a paycheck and make me drive all that way and waste, including drive and prep time, maybe 4 hours of my day, that's shameful and dishonorable. Is this all one person's opinion? Sure. I understand that you as the viewer only have my side of the story. You may have similar questions to mine, though. First, if he hadn't agreed to my photographing his event, why send me the address at all? Second, he clearly had my number. Why not give me a definitive no if he hired someone else? And finally, why would I have gone through the effort and driven there without a commitment? I'm kind of busy. If he had a specific budget, one that's a third of the amount I quoted him, he should have just said so. Instead, what I got after our conversation was a text with his contact information, including the address of where to go that night. This was still morning. If he knew he didn't want to pay what I told him I needed to charge, he had every opportunity to say, "Can I have a couple of hours to think about it?" He had every opportunity to contact me at any point during the day at the same number he texted me at to say, "Thank you, but I've decided to go in a different direction." Or even, "On second thought, this is outside the budget for the event." I can accept that, but what I have a hard time accepting is being lied to. I have a hard time accepting driving an hour to go to a venue after canceling plans, only to show up and then be told to go home because he found someone cheaper. No one owes me a living. No one is obligated to hire me. My fee is based on a living wage. I know what it costs to pay my mortgage and pay for all the things that everyone else needs to pay for, plus running my business. I know what I need to charge to walk out the door and provide the service that I do. No one is obligated to pay it. If that number is outside someone's budget, that's okay. I don't budget shame anyone. But if someone says we have a deal, or more accurately asks me if we have a deal, implying we're sealing that deal, and then one person breaks their word on that verbal agreement, they've shown themselves to exhibit a lack of respect for others and foster no amount of trust for themselves. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your spending a few minutes listening to me vent. If you like this kind of thing, please like and subscribe. Am I off base here? Am I taking this too personally? Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you'd like to see more videos like this, only with more uplifting themes, check out this other one I made for you. This is Ask a Wedding Photographer. I'm Seth Kaye, and I'm here to help.